Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone online as well.
Where are we waiting? Oh,
Thank
there.
you. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for coming along today. We're delighted to share our framework for international curriculum co-design projects and our reflections on what did and maybe what didn't work quite so well in designing online spaces for collaborations with staff and students in universities in different countries. So I'm Katalin, Hanniker, a digital learning designer at the University of Surrey.
And Irina Niculescu. I'm now a senior learning technologist at UCL, but I used to be a digital learning manager. I forgot my previous job title at Surrey. So I was actually working with Katalin when we worked on this project.
Okay, so over to you.
Okay, so I think it's going to be nearly 2 years ago when this academic, Hanniker, who is an associate professor in civil and environmental engineering with a focus on sustainability as well, approached Katalin and I in the digital education team and said that I've got an idea that might sound a bit crazy. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if you can help me with this. I have a core module that no matter if you want to become a civil engineer in Mexico or in England or in Spain, it's core knowledge that students need to develop. And I'd like to look at this module and co-design it with some of my colleagues who are also teaching the same content at different universities in other countries, and also involve students and do it online and in a limited amount of time because people are very busy. Could you help us with that? Said yes, but what helped us is that so our colleague Ali is a fantastic educator, incredibly inspirational. The module that he's still teaching already had a really strong element of authentic assessment that involves some international collaboration between University of Surrey and University of Mexico. And already the academic we worked with had the experience of student-staff partnership and an international network of colleagues who are both practitioners and actively teaching. So that made it easy for us to collaborate with Ali and create 2 online learning design workshops that helped us at the end generate an inventory of learning design activities and ideas that then each university could adapt to their own context. This is again just to clarify the 5 different countries, 5 different universities that were in 5 different countries that we worked with. So Mexico, Brazil, UK, Spain, and Iran. And I think it was really important to us in looking at literature as well when it comes to any sort of international collaboration in education, for it to be value-driven, but also to create space for people's local context. So at the start of the project, we really thought about what's our intention of the workshop and ultimately the framework that we're going to share with you today. It's very linked to what the keynote this morning emphasized, which is a space for dialogue, professional development, and reflection, and bringing staff and students together. Yes, bringing staff and students together to have some, hopefully, potentially transformative dialogue and come up with ideas together. So, go to the next slide, please. Again, being a bit more specific about our aims, we really wanted to create as much as possible an equitable project. And what was key to us was not to aim for one size fits all learning design or set of activities that then would impose on all universities. So we were focusing on creating a space for dialogue and idea generation. And obviously, we thought that doing this online can really help to include people who otherwise might not be able to take part in learning design initiatives. For example, students very often might be excluded from these sort of initiatives, especially if it involves traveling to a different country. And we thought it's actually a good chance to start looking at climate positive actions, such as why travel to do international co-design, where maybe we could get better at doing it online. So last bit from me before I hand over to Katalin, and we're going to start zooming into the actual framework. There's a lot of info on this slide, but the purpose of it is to show that we drew on a variety of principles and methods and theories when we put together these design workshops. So some really notable mentions. So obviously the learning design workshops that have been around for so many years and those formats like ABC, viewpoints, carpe diem. Appreciative inquiry was really important in order to create that space for the different contexts and for people to highlight what's important to them. And in the actual, some of the design, when we're storyboarding, the module threshold concepts helped us a lot. So if I'm sure everyone has heard of these theories, or if not, that's what I'm trying to say. We don't have time to give too much detail about the theories, but we really found that helpful in our practice as learning designers.
Thanks. Okay, so like any good designers in any sector, before we started designing workshops, we tried to establish the parameters, our design parameters, working with module lead at Eraser. So we knew that we had a maximum of 4 hours to spend with staff and students, and as Irina said, we decided to break that up into 2 workshops, one at the start of October, one at the end of October. We knew we were operating with people joining us from different time zones. What we were less sure about were the conditions on the ground for the people who were joining us. So, for example, we didn't know what their technology setups might be, how used they might be to working with the technologies we were using actually in the workshops and throughout the module as well. And also how familiar they might be, for example, of, working in partnership with students and how that might land in the actual workshops. We were also very conscious, because we had these 2 workshops and because our lovely module leader kept inviting people willy-nilly, that we were likely to have different people joining us in the 2 workshops. So from that point of view, we had to create these standalone but cohesive workshops. So they needed to be a sort of built-in fluidity in that. So to support this idea, we were hoping for this transformative dialogue and collaboration that Irina's mentioned, and these are just some of the things that we put in place. Irina mentioned appreciative inquiry, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. They use that a lot in the peace negotiations, and unfortunately we didn't need it in that context, but it's a very established process of what's working, what isn't working, what could be improved. And we apply that to different elements in modules, assessment, technologies, and it's very structured. And we hope in that way to sort of reduce any kind of dissonance or reduce the dissonance for people from working in different languages. We also included icebreakers to settle people in at the start of the sessions, getting used to working with technology, talking to each other, and hopefully helping them to contribute. And as Irina said, we were very keen to emphasize there's no right or wrong answers in these activities. It was very much about sharing experiences and challenges and looking for opportunities to collaborate in the future or to solve particular challenges at that time. So
okay, so now the actual framework. So this is not the framework, don't worry. I mean, I know people call anything nowadays a framework. It's not just this 4 phases here on the slide. This is a high level bird's eye view of the framework, just to really emphasize the transitions of the 2 learning design workshops. So we've got, before starting the first learning design workshop, there's quite a lot of setup that needs to be done. So you need to find your, obviously, a team of staff and students from different universities. So it really helps that the academic we're working with had already active connections that just informally, he was checking in with them and asking, oh, how are you teaching this? Or how are you assessing this? So what the learning design workshops did is really enhance this academics network by offering some semi-structured activities where people could have dialogue about what's going well, what isn't going well in their context. So initially, there was a lot of collaborative discovery and reflection, especially in the first learning design workshop. And then afterwards, we really had to adapt to what came out of the first workshop. We didn't fully have the second one designed, but we knew that the second one should encourage more actual proactive change and co-design and some like concrete outcomes and ideas that then staff and students can take away to their own universities and their own modules and see how they could be adapted or implemented. So that's why to finish the project, so the last part of the framework is all, actually about the importance of debriefing with everyone who is involved and really making it easy and disseminating the outcomes of the workshop as soon as possible, so that then each team from each university can prioritize what they want to do. So just to say really quickly, the framework was published in the most recent CEDA educational magazine. So this is actually what the PowerPoint slide covers in a bit more detail. We were really keen to make this very suitable for practitioners. So we were adding the estimated time by reflecting on how much time did we spend on each stage of the preparation, on each, let's say, again, learning design workshop, debriefing the workshop, how much time did we spend then preparing the second learning design workshop. And the reason why we added all these details is because we really wanted to make it easy for whoever is interested to adapt this to their context and their aims. We didn't want to have a framework that's rigid, that dictates you how to work in a project like this, which is very complex. If you start working with many countries, like Katalin was saying, there's so many variables. But to bring it a bit more, let's say, and just checking time-wise, 5 minutes, great. So again, there's more detail in the actual framework in the CEDA educational magazine, but we did a variety of activities. So even addressing hopes and fears at the start of the workshop with staff and students. So this is an example of that. We had a breakout room where students would go and talk about this whole way of working in partnership with academics and with other universities from other countries, this actual workshop. And they were anonymously adding contributions to the Jamboard about what, for example, this is an appreciative inquiry inspired activity. So what's one thing you value the most about the module that you'll take beyond your studies? And then we would bring them back to the main room where they would share the Jamboard with academics, and academics would share their Jamboard and so their digital whiteboard and their ideas with students. And then that would make it easier in terms of the power dynamics to collaborate. So, and this is a screenshot from the second, this is workshop 3 there, it's a typo from the second workshop, where it did get a bit messy because people were trying to actually design the module and incorporate some of the ideas. So people were putting learning outcomes, different types of assessments, different activities, and they were doing that collaboratively, again, in parallel breakout rooms. So again, this was the purpose, to just create ideas, not to have like a final polished learning design. So I think before I hand over to Katalin, one last bit of reflection. And if I was to highlight one thing when it comes to this sort of work, is to really move away from a solution-focused approach and really embrace what comes with the process, like the keynote this morning. That reflection, that dialogue, that professional development that emerges when you hear what other colleagues are doing in totally different contexts. Because you might even have students from those countries coming to take courses in where you're teaching. So yeah.
So just to kind of reflect a bit on some of the feedback that we got and on our own impression of the impact of the workshops. I think just to summarize this slide really, we were just blown away.
From the participants, because at the end of each learning design workshop, we asked them via an anonymous poll everywhere, right?
That's right, yeah. So there's one directly after workshop 2 and one relatively recently. But I think just to summarise this slide, we were just blown away really by the level of engagement and the conversation. It did get very feisty on stage between staff and student, which we were really delighted about.
Ask a question about that.
That had sign that things were really working. We could have used the appreciative inquiry, but and just very quickly. Oh yeah, we wanted to share this. I'm doing an MA next year. Sorry. And I'm really interested in the way that different ways that we relate to each other online and face to face. And I did a piece of research with some of the participants after the 2 workshops. And there were some very obvious pros and cons that people identified, you know, between being online and being face to face. But just a couple of things to pick out that I found really interesting, which might help us when designing online. There's this sense that hierarchy mattered less online, which I thought was really interesting. You know, the fact that when we're on screen, we're all of a similar size, and the participant said we have the same value. And dress is less important, where kind of, you know, where that unconscious bias might creep in, and that's less of an issue. At the bottom there, feeling at home when you're joining remotely, and I know there's a lot of work that's come out around that. Since the pandemic, you know, the value of being grounded in your own space.
And the social materiality of the side of our technologies.
Yeah. And you know, sort of feeling grounded, and how that feeds into the way we feel about engagement and our learning. And of course, for one participant, there was cognitive overload with all the different platforms that were going on at the same time. Just to draw out some of my favourite quotes, really, when trying to compare the online and face-to-face, the recognition that it's very different, you know, trying to compare oranges and apples, and there are benefits from both, but, and I guess that's just to reflect on the fact, you know, getting that blend right of online and face-to-face is quite important when we're designing. Just a lovely comment from my colleague Irina. I was allowed to identify her, but her permission at the bottom. That, you know, this sense of being home, grounded, and that kind of magic of bringing people into your front room. I guess sometimes isn't quite so positive, but sorry, just to wrap up. So at the other end of the spectrum, with the diversity of different formats, our student found that a really helpful way to be able to create kind of opinions and then share them in the room. And so we just wanted to bust the myth that being online is communicating online is impoverished. You know, it can be really fruitful. And just to wrap up, right at the bottom, you know, there's the recognition that things are really moving and changing, and that we might need completely different skill sets to communicate online. And you know, just to recognise that learning design is massive. Really, it's a big area, I think, and lots to take in. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.